For several years, we at Envia have been really interested in the rites of passage that accompany us in life. And over the past few years, we have become especially intrigued by the phase constituting eldership or sagehood, because we have quite a lot of community members who are now entering this phase. So we would like to have a conversation with our broader community about what it means to age positively in a society and a culture that places so much emphasis on youthfulness, immortality, and the pursuit of pleasure. We would like to have a conversation with older people about their perspectives on the meaning of life.
I don't think about 80. What's 80? 80 is 20 and old fart is 20. No, 80 is nothing. I mean, I haven't even started yet. I'm really at the beginning. The thread that ran through my life from the time I was a very young child was I desperately had to make art. It's a desperate need to communicate something.
At the end of last year, Rosemary Lapping-Sellars received her master's degree in visual arts from the University of Stellenbosch. 40 people applied for the course, 15 were accepted, only Rosemary finished. At the time of this interview, she is 80 years old.
Rosemary, what a privilege to be here with you today. But let me first thank you. I packed the wrong lipstick this morning. So how adorable that you had just the right lipstick for me to wear. So thank you.
You're very welcome. I have a few colors for you.
Please introduce yourself to me. Who is Rosemary?
Whoa. Well, that's a very interesting question. First of all, I'm a mother. That's the prime thing, I suppose. I'm a very proud daughter. I loved my parents. And both my father and my mother were splendid folk. And they brought us up very well. So I'm a daughter. I can claim that. I'm a wife, have been twice, and I was reasonably good. And I'm a very good mother. So that's where we start. But the thread that ran through my life from the time I was a very young child was I desperately had to make art. And when I say art, that's such a facile term for capturing my thoughts in a visual way. So art, I'm frightened to use the term because it's used in so many light-hearted and often disparaging ways. I don't see it like that. I see it as, for me, Rosemary, alone, that it's a desperate need to communicate something. And I will now use my cliche and my much-used story. When Robert Hughes, who was the art critic for Time magazine, he went to interview Henry Moore when he was knighted. And Henry Moore had made this enormous sculpture for his garden. Not his garden, the garden in Glasgow. Huge, huge, mother and child. And Robert Hughes introduced himself and he said, "Sir Moore, could you please tell me about this sculpture?" And Henry Moore looked at him and he said, "Mr. Hughes, if I had words, I would not have used stone." And I think that actually epitomizes my journey, because throughout my entire life, and I can honestly say it, from the time I was 5, I record desperately the search for a medium to do what I was doing. My art making has just given me the joy of my life. I have used it and I have loved it, but often been able to say something that it was too painful to say, but I could use it.
There are so many things about what you've said now that I'd like to pick up.
Sure.
One of the things is your very recent exhibition.
Yes.
Of which the second part was called Dialogue Without Utterance.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. Because don't forget, my second husband now, my God, I had two husbands. The first one died before I was 40 in Stellenbosch. He was one of the directors at SFW. And he was walking with my son in the mountain, and he fell. So that was not drama number, maybe not one, but one of the dramas. And then for 8 years I was on my own, and I went back to university, and I did a degree through UNISA in fine art, because I didn't know how to deal with being a widow so young with 4 babies. So that was my first interpretation of what I wanted to say. And then I remarried Sean, and Sean was a cancer surgeon, so he did a lot of blood. And then he died dramatically in 2019. And again, I didn't know what to say. So the only thing I could do was to study and do research. And once I started, and as the first works that I produced, became very clear that a lot of myself was going into this. And it was all about my dialect, my words, but they were not captured in a verbal, auditory way. So it was a dialect without any form of sound, which is not unlike the Henry Moore thing. I used my work to tell people what I was and who I am and what I felt, especially now about COVID.
And that is the first part of the title of your exhibition.
Yes.
Vulnerability laid bare.
Yes.
Please elucidate a bit.
When I started it, the first thing I saw in my my journey to try and create my vision for my masters was I saw Modi throwing the Indian itinerants out of Delhi, because he was frightened that COVID would permeate the city. Of course, it permeated the world. However, the main thing about it was that he threw them out, and he gave them 4 hours. And these wretched people, old, young, babies, had to throw everything down and walk. And they walked sometimes hundreds of miles home. And their vulnerability was so cruel to me. It hit me in my gut. And then I realized the level of my own vulnerability and my own empathy. I didn't realize the extent of my empathy for humanity. I did not know that. I found that out. I discovered it. Suddenly, I thought, oh my word, I really do care so much that it makes me cry, almost. Not really, but it brings me to a very emotional mindset, which then began my journey. And that evoked into huge artworks which I produced. And it was all about vulnerability, was laid bare during COVID.
You know what? I would like to read you something, actually, which Brené Brown again said yesterday on art.
Yes.
And I would like to have your response
Please.
to it. She says, vulnerability is the birthplace of a lot of things, amongst others, creativity. Without vulnerability, you can't create. And then she says, art has the power to render sorrow beautiful and to make loneliness a shared experience and transform despair into hope. She says the magic of all art is the ability to both capture our pain and deliver us from it at the same time. And then she asks, who shows us a glimpse of what we think we hate and can make it beautiful better than an artist?
You see, that's very profound. And it's the truth. But I would like to extrapolate on that, on the truth. And that is that I think one of the greatest tragedies in our education, which starts with your parents, really. But children are given very early on the notion that art is drawing. And not only is it drawing and being clever, but actually creating or mimicking what it's meant to look like. So a young child will run with all the enthusiasm of its life to its mother and say, "Do you like my drawing?" And she'll say, "What is it?" And he says, "It's a horse." She says, "That's not a horse. That is one of the most brutal things to try and re-establish in young people and in elderly people and in old people and in all sorts of people. What is the important thing is having the courage to do it and to create something that has no words."
Rosemary, you've taught children and adults.
Everything.
What about the teaching experience is gratifying or rewarding?
Well, you see, I didn't know my level of empathy, did I? Number one, I didn't know that. And I think now I can look at it and think it's because I have been so vulnerable so many times. When I say so vulnerable, that's not right. We are all vulnerable, all of us, all the time. Potentially can be hurt. But it's when hurt hits you in your nether regions, it becomes an interesting phenomenon because somehow you realize how frail you are and therefore how vulnerable you are. My greatest thing about teaching is that I can pick up where there are vulnerabilities. I can pick up sensitivities. I can pick up a child that has an abusive mother. I can pick it up like that. And because my gut is able to handle it and my level of empathy, and you know, I keep repeating this, I honestly didn't know this was my skill. I didn't. But I'm able to help them. So I've had some remarkable healing opportunities.
What would Rosemary tell my daughter, for example, or just a younger person in their 20s, in their 30s, anything? What would you say?
Well, I can tell you the first thing I know I would do. I'd show her complete approval and affection so that she felt safe with me, that she felt that she could trust me. Because you cannot have a relationship, especially with a young person, if you're critical, or if you're rude, or if you show a form of disregard, because it immediately puts them on their guard. So I never, ever do that, and I can truthfully say that. I don't do that. So if I met your daughter, I would get to know her, but in a very approving, kind, and uncritical way. I'd look after her, I'd talk to her. I might even find something really that I'd like to praise, because by that, and I don't mean it in a way that you praise to schmarm, is a very bad English word, but it's to schmarm, like a sycophant. I would not. But she'd know I mean that. Like, I can see that girl there, that girl there. She's beautiful, and she knows it. And if she doesn't, I'm telling her that. And it's an easy thing for me.
You know, I was so excited about visiting you today, and I told my children, and I want to tell you what Brigitte, my daughter, said.
Tell us.
I gave her some background on you and about your achievements, which we'll come to. And she said, "Ma, but it seems like getting older is actually fabulous."
But it is.
And she said, "It seems like you have not finished living."
No.
Until you die.
No, definitely not. 100%. I mean, I haven't even started yet. I'm really at the beginning. You know where I'm going now? I'm going around the world. I am.
Doing?
I'm going to just go. I'm going to see all my children. I'm going to go to galleries. I'm going to paint. I've got a big box of all my art materials. I'm going to enjoy myself. And I'm coming back to study.
Study what?
Well, I can't talk about it because they haven't accepted me yet. But you've got a good enough imagination. I don't have to tell you.
So I was going to ask you, Rosemary,
Yes.
How does 80 feel?
Fabulous. I don't care. I don't think about 80. What's 80? 80 is 20 and old fart is 20. No, 80 is nothing. I mean, what is it? 80 is nothing. I mean, it's only a sound. You know, it's only a perception. It's only, I don't know. I mean, it's almost unfortunate that we have to tally our lives in numbers. Because again, it's almost like a language without words. Because it's who you are, what you are, how you perceive things. That's what I am. I don't care how old I am. I don't give a damn.
You know, you made reference now to who you are, to identity. It was so interesting to me when we started this morning and I asked you, Rosemary, who are you? Introduce yourself to me. I find it fascinating and intriguing, given your achievements at your age, that you defined your identity not as that,
No.
but as a daughter
Yes.
and a mother, essentially.
Yes, 100 times. Because without them, I wouldn't be who I am today. I would not. I would not have learned the lessons of life had I not walked the road of remarkable people. You know, I have walked an incredible road and had the privilege of such incredible people with values I enjoy and I try to replicate. Not always. I mean, you know, parents are powerful things. So very often when I'd forget the sugar on the table, I'll say, oh, I forgot my mother. My mother would hate me to do this. She's there. She sleeps here. You know, and I think that I'm proud of being a daughter. I'm proud, very proud of being a good wife. I can honestly say that. And I know I'm an incredible mother. I know that. It touches my heart. I really am. I mean, I looked after my kids when John died. I wasn't 40. I had 4 babies. Can I tell you something? When people say to me, what do your children do? I say, you know what? You Google them. They are brilliant. And they are. They're all at the top of their trees. All 4 of them. And it's only me. You know what I mean? That's my achievement. To look at these unbelievably amazing people who are now spawning the next generation. That is what I'm doing. That's my life.
Spawning the next generation.
Yes.
That is beautiful.
Yes.
We hope you enjoyed episode 1. Should you wish to further reflect on this interview, you can download notes from our website www.envia.org.za. Episode 2 is also now available on YouTube.